Hello and welcome to Asking the Expert. Today I'm going to be interviewing Kevin Reilly from KJ Associates, where we're going to be talking about procurement within the security and crowd safety sector. Kevin, good morning and welcome. How are you?
Hi Paul, yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
You're looking well?
Yeah, well, listen, no commuting's doing me all right.
You're still in lockdown and still in isolation yourself?
I am, yeah. I actually went off a week before the official lockdown, and my current employer has been very, very good. So we've actually got everything set up to work from home.
Brilliant.
From the corner of our extension, but it's going all right. You know, it is what it is. But thankful that my employer's very good, and we had no downturn in any work. We've actually had more work, so it's good.
Well, that's good news. At least you've got daylight with a window behind you as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot going on in the background.
Yeah. We'll keep it open and we'll keep it fluid. So, Kevin, yeah, for the purpose of the guests and the viewers, could you sort of take me through your sort of life history in terms of how you got into procurement and who you've worked for and what you've done? And I want to give the sort of audience a sort of running guide in terms of best practice into assisting them within putting tenders together, responses, and so on and so forth. So just sort of give us a rundown about your good self.
Well, it's funny when people ask a question about getting into procurement. I've only met one person in my whole career that actually wanted to be a procurement manager or wanted to get procurement and went to university and done the whole thing. Most people fall into it.
Yeah.
I worked for London, started working for London Underground in 1990. And done a bit of a few bits of office work and stuff like that, very basic. But then in about '93, I went out as a signalling engineer. So I was out on the track. I was just, help assisting what was called, they're now called technical officers. And I used to go to the stores to pick up materials, and got on well with the guys in the office. And then basically, we were looking at a redundancy back in sort of '95, because all of our work was being outsourced. And I told the guys in the office, they said, there's an opportunity in the buying office. And I took the job and became a buyer for London Underground. So I fell into it. And I was buying everything from, signalling materials. So it was everything from hoses and cables and all types of stuff. And that was quite good. But then I went into HQ, and I was buying utilities, so energy. Obviously, it was gas at the time, and there's no gas anymore. But it was, electricity. I was buying uniforms and everything for kind of keeping the London Underground running operationally. And then in 2001, I got into the facilities management side. So I was looking after all the property portfolio, and it's kind of hard and soft services. The viewers might remember a company called Metronet. It was part of a public-private partnership, and so from '99 to 2007, we had this kind of infrastructure services. So I kind of built up an opportunity to kind of take a facilities and property and put my own kind of feeling on it. And at one point, we had 29 different commodities. We'd done everything from telephone systems to, I don't know, stationery and all kinds of stuff. But in about 2005, I took on the depot security. So all the security guarding for all of the train depots, and that was kind of like my first kind of real look into it. It was a big one of the big FM companies who've got a security arm with them. But there was a lot of abatements on these contracts. So if a tube train didn't go out of, say, Needham Depot because it was graffitied, because there had been somebody had got in, and then the train was graffitied, that they wouldn't put it out, and then there would be the investigation would say, well, if it was the security's fault, there would be abatements on the contract. It was all very, very, very difficult, but kind of quite good fun. And then I was working on some projects doing things like access systems. So we were looking at, fence line systems, CCTV, all kind of, all this kind of intruder stuff. And then I was responsible for, because I was looking after the property portfolio, all of the door systems, all of the access, the Gallagher systems, and so I had quite good insight into security. It was very, very difficult running a tender exercise to change the security provider, because it was such a difficult, such a penalised contract. But we managed it a couple of times, and then getting away from that, I left London Underground in 2010. I took a voluntary redundancy. I'd been there 20 years, and decided I wanted to see what the world looked like. So I set up KJR Associates, and it was basically set up to help SMEs win public sector contracts.
Yeah. Is that your secretary?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm out in a second, buddy. So sorry. So basically set up to try and help win public sector contracts. So there were things like, like London Underground had systems like Achilles, and small companies weren't getting through bid. They weren't putting, they didn't have connections. They weren't putting consortiums together to try and bid to win these, nice packets of work. There were really lots of really nice things. And there was, I've done lots of things for property management companies and furniture companies, and and it was kind of like I was trying to help them win pieces of work. So I was helping them through the Achilles process, and and I wasn't, I was charging them on a kind of, if they win, sort of like a risk and reward type thing, but in a day rate. So it was, and it worked out quite well. For the first 3 years, it was okay. 2013 or 2012, early 2012, I went to work at Olympic Park as a procurement manager, working for a small firm, helping them to we put the security fencing, the cameras on the security fencing around the whole perimeter of the park. So that was quite good. That was an interesting project. We were contracted to Honeywell, who were an interesting client. And then as soon as the game's finished, there was a lack of work for contractors or consultants like myself. I tried to sort of engage people, but the market had slowed right down. So I took a role at Network Rail. I was commuting out to Swindon. Done that for 6 months. That was pretty good. I was doing things like renewing bridges and upgrading stations, all the old stations, single line stations that go through the Cotswolds and things like that. That was it was pretty good. So some kind of like civils type work as well. Decided that commute to Swindon was too much from London every day, so I found a job at Balfour Beatty Workplace, which then became NG, and I was the procurement manager for, first of all, for all of their southern public sector contracts. So the Metropolitan Police, or MOPAC as it's called, BIS, the HMRC, all these kind of like big, and I had Olympic Park as well. So I helped build, help with the build of Olympic Park, and then I went to manage the place. I spent 5 years at NG, and then now I've gone back out contracting. So I had another stint at Network Rail. That was pretty good. I was doing advertising, marketing in car parks, which is completely me.
Different.
And then and now I've got my current employer, and I'm doing things. So I've just done an event management tender, which is small events at a major station. Things like the Christmas tree and all this kind of, the people that do all that kind of PR stuff.
Yeah.
And I've just tendered the IT contract. So I've kind of got a very, very wide range.
Yeah.
I'm not a master of a single subject, but I've got a very, very kind of wide and varied background.
So you've done a lot in terms of sort of purchasing and tendering and work for some very, very big organisations. In terms of the security, was that a sort of game changer for you? Did you have to get in some additional support to understand how the security sector works, or did you, from a procurement perspective, did you just sort of go, right, documentation standard across the board, that's what we're putting out, that's the requirement for the client? Or did you have to get in sort of some additional support externally to make you understand how security works in a whole, from electronic, from man guarding?
So we would, I mean, at London Underground, we had like the security manager who would be the industry expert.
And did he play a part, Kevin, in part of putting sort of tender documents together with yourself?
Yeah. So the main, you know, the security manager would ultimately be my stakeholder.
Yeah.
The reason why we're tendering is because due to the because it's a regulated business, we need to tender. So he would put the specifications together of his requirements. So he would try and future-proof it. So he would be the knowledge. He would have his industry network. He would be going to the trade shows and listening, and getting involved to find out what we want to go forwards. But then within a highly regulated rail business, equipment needs to go through an approval process. So if you, for instance, had a lone worker system, we wouldn't be able to just take that on because you've said it works very well. It would have to be tested and go through so any kind of cameras or any kind of door systems or even key systems, like even hard lock keys, he would have to go through a full process of getting everything checked and rechecked, or approved as such. So he would be the technical expert. So the procurement would be kind of like the facilitator. So I kind of expect our stakeholders to write a specification. Then I, as a layperson who don't really understand it, I'm reading it completely new, completely blind, and I want to be able to understand it. I'm not too sure about like BSEN numbers and standards and all that kind of. I would kind of look them up. You'd expect the detail to be handed out. That when an expert, company like yourself, when your bid manager, your team look at it, they know exactly what they're looking at straight away. I've just got to make sure that when it goes out, everything is correct, the numbers are correct.
And would you challenge, Kevin? So from the stakeholder being a security manager, we'll use that as a scenario. So if you was putting a piece of work together, security manager will supply you the outline of what they need to cover X amount of sites, manpower, so on and so on. But would you, as procurement, challenge if you didn't feel something was correct or it wasn't going to go out correct? Would you have that authority, or would it be the case of the industry experts telling you as the procurement panel, look, this is what I need, go to the market and test it? Or would you still get involved at that level?
I think it's you're quite reliant on the technical experts.
Yeah.
I would take if I was solely a security procurement manager, then I would be fairly a fair expert in the field. All you need to make sure is really that you're working within the guidelines. So the working time directive, making sure people are not working too many hours, what the cover is, making sure it's all the health and safety stuff is in there. So if somebody if someone came along and said one of the technical if someone wanted a man guarding at one building, but there was no opportunity for the guard to have a break, and who covers him on the break, we need to make sure that that's in. You need to really kind of have a look at it in detail. And this is why we when we put a tender out, we have the clarification questions.
Yeah.
Because I've seen tenders where we've had hundreds and hundreds of clarification questions, and some of them are right because the stakeholders missed it.
And would that tender then be pulled back, Kevin? If have you seen it yourself where a potential bidder would question a certain element? And I've done this previously on tenders and won them and not won them, but the questions I put forward sometimes have actually held the stage tender and then rewrote and then put it back out again.
Yeah, you take a look at the risk of how it would affect the actual timeline of the program, and what you do is you just pause the tender exercise, speak between the team, and then the variation to tender, put a variation within the or update the tender, the ITT, because we've got to be 100% clear. I try to get as much detail in there as possible. possible, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to overflow. You don't want to pile too much information, because tenders there's a lot of data. There's a lot of data, but you have to make sure that your technical data is right to make sure you get the right technical response.
Within the procurement world, is there a Bible? Is there a standard set of operating procedures, how the stage of procurement and the cycle works, or is it valued on value of cost? Say, for example, I don't know, it's a £10 million piece of work. These are the stages we have to go through. If it's a £100,000 piece of work, we can only go to 1 or 2 stages. Is there an overview within procurement of certain stages that you have to go through on a private or public sector tender?
Well, on a public sector tender, we're still guided through the OJU rules, which is even though with Brexit, it still happens, and as good as practice, we should do it. So any service over, I think it's 383k, because it's classed as a service, would need to be advertised through OJU. Now, from my experience, and there's lots and lots of systems around nowadays, lots of systems, but it needs to go out in the 2 stages of a PQQ, because what you need to do is you need to see what the market is offering you. So you could put a PQQ, the PQQ filters out the people that are not going to qualify for the tender stage. Because what you don't want to do is you want to do the PQQ, get the market excited, get the market talking to you, and then you want to then filter them out, and then bring the people that have responded well through to the ITT stage.
And how would you sort of monitor that? Is there a sort of scoring matrix when the PPQ comes into you? Do you then look at it based on technical side of it? Do you look at it based of credit checks on the company and checks at their stages?
Yeah. So what I've kind of done lately is I've actually done things like, so you've got your self-cleansing questions. So they're all the credit check, the DUNS numbers. We do we can't do all that. And then there's all the, when I say self-cleansing questions, it's all about sort of fraud and bankruptcy and all that kind of, and chart of a set of accounts, and they are all reviewed. I mean, I review them all the time. We also have been asking now about the sort of health and safety questions and the accreditation questions. So, do you have 9001? Do you have 18,001? Cybersecurity is a big one now. So some of those questions are scored. So if I ask the question, do you have ISO 9001, and you say yes, then the scoring, you should even though you say yes and say give me a copy of your document, then you should score 10. Whatever the scoring has been assigned to it. If you say we're working towards it, and this is what we've got in place, and you can produce the documents, so we'll take a view on it, and we'll get the health and safety manager to look at it and say, okay, so you should score 7 or 8. If you say no, then you really shouldn't score anything, and you should really we'd have to take a view whether we're going to bring you through, because if it it's a standard. So there's a number of different standards that we're on, that we ask people to do. So, and what we're doing now is we're actually putting the contract terms in the PQQ as well. So we're actually saying, look, review the terms, and then we're saying if you've got 5 amendments, then we're not going to take you through. So if it doesn't work, so what we try and do is I know it sounds quite tough, sort of filter people out at the early stage, but we don't want to waste anybody's time. I've done a number of bids. I've seen some shocking bids that have come out, or sort of shocking documents, I should say, that have come out. And you answer things as best as you can, and you do have. I mean, recently I've done a bid for a company where they've actually asked about SIA and accredit, and the accreditation, and I said, we do it in-house. We've got our own training. I think you've got your own training facility as well.
Yes, we've got our own. Yeah, we've got our own internal training department. Yeah,
so similar to yours. So, and then when I got the feedback, we didn't get through. When I got the feedback, they've actually said they scored us like 7 out of 10. So we said we can actually do all of our own checks. and we train and we scored, and there was no reason why we couldn't have scored top marks, and it was. We didn't. There was nothing washy about it. There was nothing strange about it. It was just how they scored it. So when I put something out, we actually put the scoring methodology in the actual document. So and it's kind of, it's weighted. So what we normally do is we normally put, if it's absolutely poor, is a 0.
Yeah.
A score of 8 would be fair. Score of 9 would be meets requirements. Score of, I think, 16 is good, and then 25 is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very rare someone will get an excellent unless it's a real top-notch bid. And we put the methodology in, and then so each element within. So usually within the scoring, within the sort of PQQ side, what we would do is we would tell you which areas are scored, and like the self-cleansing questions, like have you been been made bankrupt, or have you been, any conflicts of interest? They're usually sort of yes, no questions. The ones where you have to technically answer something and write something down, they're usually scored. So the accreditations 9,000 is usually scored, and I try not to be too harsh. I did some work for a company who wanted their security provider to have all of these tickets, the 14,000, 18,000, all these, but they didn't have it themselves.
Wow.
Yeah, they didn't have the accreditations themselves. So it's kind of like, you're asking someone for something and then you don't have it yourself. And I asked, why haven't you got it? And they said, well, we don't need it.
Yeah.
Why are you asking them? Why are you asking them? Have they got, why haven't they got it?
Do you think as well, Kevin, that, and you've probably seen this, and tenders are set there really to attract the bigger providers, where the small SMEs, like you say, 9,001 or 14,001, where they're attracted more to the wording and the criteria that they're asking within the tender is setting the SMEs up to fail straight away. Do you think there should be an overview and looking how the tender process works? Because I've lost tenders based on certain questions and accreditations I didn't have, and the organisation itself didn't even have, and it didn't even stack up to what was being asked as a requirement. And no offence to the big providers out there, the big security providers, they have got departments just purely bid writing and carrying out bids every single day and doing this and doing that. But the small organisations, the SMEs like myself, you're looking at these tenders and they're coming through and they're like 200-300 pages, and you can only fill in 300 words on this answer on this technical question, and you maximum 500 words. You can't express yourself in small boxes, Kevin. And you look at it, you go halfway through it, and you think, we're not going to win this.
Yeah.
My ethos is you've got to have a go. You've got to keep going. And
Well, I think it really depends. Well, there's quite a lot of elements there, really, but I think it kind of depends on the mentality of the actual company or the stakeholder that's actually putting the piece of work out. And when I was at NG, we were getting involved because we were providers of a service to a client. So we would then subcontract work down. So say like security. So I ran a SME engagement program with Lambeth Council, and one of the companies that came in as an SME was a security company that had a number of branches around the UK. And he was disappointed that I pointed it out, that the word SME, I'd rather say micro, right, rather than SME, because there is values there. So he was actually quite a big company. And he was annoyed that I wasn't giving him more opportunities within NG. And I said, well, I'd rather the companies that are really trying, like you're okay, you've got lots of opportunities, lots of bids, and you've got lots of areas to get work. I mean, I've done a bid once for another council in just south of the Thames, and they wanted one guard, and we spent 40 hours writing the bid on this terrible document, and a major company won it, big security company won it. And it was like, how how are you supposed to? It was one guard for 5 days a week. So you can imagine what the value was. I think it was something like 30 grand a year. It was a 3-year contract. So the company, so the major company that won it, what's happening with their business that they're actually going for something as small as that? But then what's the matter with this council, that they're not looking at SMEs? They're not looking at the small local company that's trying to bet themselves and win a piece of work. It's actually quite difficult to sort of it's quite difficult to try and work out. Like when I was at London Underground, there's no way an SME could have done that piece of work.
Yeah.
There was just no way. It had to be a major company. The risk was too big. Sorry.
Let me out.
I think our supervisor's doing something else. Yeah, I mean, we should really look at what the work is like. What the actual output is, and then decide. Actually, why our company's actually too big to undertake. Because in my world, do I want if I was running a business, do I want to be a small company that's been looked after by someone huge? I'll just get lost. So recently I've done a PR, like a PR contract, and what we didn't want the massive big PR companies.
Right.
What would be a small client to them, and we would just get lost. We want something with a little bit more kind of personal.
You wanted that service, that sort of
that's right.
Touch, instead of just getting a contract number.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is like it's really difficult when it comes to kind of like tenders and like the wording and what you want is a clear, precise, straight to the point. You don't want any waffle and you don't want any sales.
Yeah.
But you need to be technically sound. Yeah. I mean, I've seen some really good. I've seen some really good responses, and I've written some responses that have probably been a bit washy because I didn't fully understand the technical question. But then I've written some really great responses that have been viewed as poor. Well, not poor, but met requirements, but didn't score very high.
And how important, Kevin, is pricing? So from a procurement perspective, you get all these bidders come through on the stage of the cycle. You go to the bottom page, the back page, and look at the price right away.
That's the first thing I do. It's the first thing I do. But the thing about it is, it's like what the living wages or the national living wage or London living wages. So you know what the guys are going to be getting paid. So anything more than that, you know what the margin is. So if somebody comes in at, I don't know, £15 an hour, they're making quite a decent margin. If somebody comes in very, very low, then you're thinking, well, hold on a minute, there is kind of.
Is it legal? Is this a legal bid?
But the thing about it is, most these tenders that we put out as most economically advantageous tender, which is it's based on on the scoring. So the scoring of the technical response, the scoring of the self-cleansing questions, and then the scoring of price. I mean, I can send some examples if people want to see what that looks like. But we do score we now do score the pricing. So when you get a response and they say your price came in at I don't know 90% or something like that, and you scored 90%, but someone scored 100% because they had a target and they had a target set and they came in lower. So it can be under audit. It can be viewed, but then if people want to buy a contract, it's if people want to put 1% margin on it, it's difficult. When I was at NG, it was a very my targets were savings. So it was a savings. So every year I had a £300,000 a year savings target, and I had multiple contracts, 25 to 29 different contracts, and you'd have to make savings on them. And so the first thing I would do was I would go to the bottom line and say, right, it was £15 last time, now it's £11. If I times that by by the men, the hours, and all the rest of it. I'm going to make this sort of saving, and that's where you would go. Now, where I am and elsewhere where I am, it's not like that at all, because it's all about the service. And, I'm currently working for a railway company. I know it's not. I know it's definitely not about savings. It's about actual 100% delivery and professional delivery and reporting.
Because all that's doing then is driving the service provider down. They want to keep the work. They don't want to lose it. They're going to offer a further discount. That's coming off of their bottom line. Staff members not going to get their increase, and all it's really doing is driving the service down to the bare minimum. Yeah,
I mean, I recently had we put a small cleaning contract into the company that I'm with, and one of the things they weren't really. It's a small contract, it's 20 grand a year or something like that, but it was an opportunity for the incumbent, who was a micro company, was just running out of his house. We gave him another opportunity to kind of rebid on it, because we had to put it to tender. And he didn't want to compete against the big guys. But the next company, the company that won it, the MD came in and saw us, said he reinvests in systems and he reinvests all the time, and it was really kind of really positive to see that it was about building the company. It wasn't about sort of personal fortunes and all that kind of stuff. It was about hundreds of staff being employed, keeping people employed, making sure they're all right to work, and making sure they've got the right kit and all that kind of stuff. And it was really kind of it wasn't kind of over sales. It just ticked every single box that you kind of wanted. But you could see it was like about reinvestment, logging in through using mobile apps and all that kind of stuff. Might be standard to some people, but it wasn't for us. The previous company, all they would do is they'd come in and they'd sign in a sign in a book saying they arrived at 3 o'clock.
Right.
So, some good stuff. But I mean, to reinvest, I mean, it wasn't cheaper. It was, and we took a punt on it, and it's working quite well. Unfortunately, the contractors paused it. Well, it's not paused, because my employer's actually been quite good and carry on paying,
right?
Because they are low paid workers.
Yeah.
But they haven't been working for the last 6 weeks.
Wow. So going forward, what sort of advice could you offer micros and SMEs in terms of they want to, they go onto the portals, they go on B2B, they go on OJEC, they see a piece of work they want to bid on. They've got the standards, they've got the processes, they've got the procedures. What sort of advice in terms of sort of written questions and answers and submissions would you give people?
I think the thing is, you've got to read the spec and make sure that you 100% know that you can deliver it.
Yeah.
So if you've got a security company in, I don't know, in the southwest, and there's a piece of work in London, are you going to be able to contract manage that? You can have the guys out, but are you going to be able to fully contract manage it? Fully understand the spec. That's the main thing. I've seen some specs where they want a control room, and they want, if you don't have it, don't waste your time, because there's a lot of money can be wasted of your own money being wasted putting bids together where you could be missing something. I think the thing is you just got to be clear and precise. Make sure that, other piece of advice is, make sure that if you don't have the accreditations, then don't try it. Because there was an ISO audit done on Monday on one of my clients, and one of the things we not say we were quite lucky, but it was interesting that they said what the auditing companies now do is look at the properties of documents that you send across.
Yeah.
So if you've just quickly thrown something together to put it into the bid to get it out, they'll look at the properties of the document and say it was made on the document was drafted like 2 weeks before the bid went in, and it looks like it's not been you've only done it. People are looking for. We're kind of looking at everything now. It's kind of like, be prepared.
Yeah.
The other thing for tenders is, and I'm guilty of this with some of my clients, is leaving it to the last minute. Don't read it straight away. Look at the date. Set yourself some time aside. Take some advice. If you've got a team of people, take some advice from HR about how you're going to recruit. How what do you need? who you're going to put in as your team. And then with the technical questions, just be precise, just straight to the point. If there's any kind of what people don't want, that they don't want filler.
Yeah, waffle. Yeah, just to fill up the box.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, where it says up to in no more than 500 words doesn't mean you have to get to 500. Yeah, that's my view. I mean, we ran a tender for legal services, and we said exactly that. No more than 500 words. And we were quite taken back by some of them have done exactly 500. But then when you read it, it was
just filling it out.
Then listen, these were lawyers. These were Magic Circle, legal advisors, and it was just filler. And we ended up, sort of like one of our lazy eyes started going off in the other direction, because we kind of like we're reading stuff that was kind of unnecessary for them to put in. But I would say and make sure the document's clean. Do you know what I mean? So one thing I've done, I'm guilty of it as well. I'm not doing it anymore. Follow the instructions, right? So if they say complete this document, fill in these sections, then fill in those sections and send them their document back. If you can, put it into another format, not a salesy format, but another format, but being clear. Make sure it's hot linked. So from the index, you can actually like press pricing, and then it it brings you to the pricing schedule. All that kind of nice stuff just makes it easy and makes it quick.
And do you think bidders, Kevin, should put their logos on the documents and reinvent the document, or keep what?
If it doesn't say, if it doesn't say don't do it, then by all means put it on. One of the things that I know that one of the things that frustrates the hell out of me is the number of systems that we have now. So we've got Pro Contract, Cooper, EU Supply, Delta. We've got all of these kind of and the frustrating thing is that all the information that you put in, you have to keep putting in, and you put in, and every time you get a tender, you have to keep filling in the same thing. I believe that EU Supply now is the one that I'm working with my client, because I'm now, I'm training to be a super user on it, so I can actually see it from your side, often from all sides really. And what they're doing, all the self-cleansing questions, once they go on to EU Supply, that's it. You'll never have to do it again. So, and then it will automatically tell you if your insurance runs out or if your policy runs out. You'll get an email and it will say you need to update. So that's all. That's pretty. I think Cooper does it as well, but I think all the other ones are now sort of playing catch up, because it really takes a lot of time, and by the time you get around to your technical questions, you're actually fed up with like typing in your MD's birthday, person of significant control, all these kind of things. You're retyping it in or typing it in. So by the time you get around to the technical bit, you're thinking, oh my God, I've had enough of this already. Those are changes.
That's interesting. Tenders are there, and they are growing constantly, and there's various different portals that you can go and register on for free and bid for pieces of work. So if people wanted to sort of use your services, Kevin, how would they get in touch with you? What sort of packages and offerings could you supply them?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so I don't have a website, or my company's there's a couple of us in the company. I've got a couple of people in Crossrail doing a bit of work there. I've got one chartered engineer that's actually doing a lot of commissioning work on Crossrail, so he's in there doing that. And there's a couple of us we're actually doing sort of bid management and we're like accreditation management. So we're helping people get through things like Achilles and risks and ISOs and stuff like that. And I've got sort of health, HR, ex-HR directors that's putting kind of policies and risk assessments and all that kind of stuff. But I'm on LinkedIn. I don't have a website because we've done a lot of work that's really through word of mouth. We kind of not say we pick and choose, but we kind of like we want to make sure that we work with the right clients.
Yeah.
because we want to make sure that we can work with them to make sure that their reputation is kept. It's not about our reputation, but it's about their reputation and whether we can actually like help build them up. So it's, yeah.
And just a final one. So through COVID, we're currently in from a procurement sort of eye on the situation. Have you seen procurement standards being lax for emergency work needing to be brought in from, all across sectors, or is the right, client A needs masks or gowns or needs clean? Is that gone out the window? Is it a case of, right, submit your pricing now while we're in this emergency situation, or is procurement?
The government have actually, the cabinet office has actually released a notice to say that because of the pandemic, in exceptional circumstances, we can. The rules have been relaxed. It's not that exact wording. I can send you the exact wording. But we've had to do things like, my current employer, we've had to extend an IT contract based on the fact that if it had been awarded in the next couple of days, and we had changed IT managed provider, if something goes wrong, then all of our people, the systems could go down and we might not be able to work. So what we've done is we've used that notice to say, it's an exceptional circumstance, we can extend this contract. So the government have actually given us the kind of green light to go off and do whatever we need to do. I think some people are kind of jumping on it. I mean, on LinkedIn, I've had, maybe 50 people in the last, 6 weeks, 7 weeks offering me PPE.
Right.
I'm not a buyer of PPE. I've got friends at the NHS and young girl working out of Birmingham. She's buying lots and lots of PPE. She's a category manager for PPE actually, so she's working like really, really hard. But there's people jumping on that, sort of trying to sell, when they should really be sort of focusing on other areas. And not say it doesn't really sit well with me. I don't really want to see too many people making. People got to make money. I understand that, but people profiteering out of quite difficult situations, not good.
I agree. So to make sure LinkedIn doesn't become sort of eBay.
Yeah, well, I kind of been accepting. I've been accepting quite everybody that's kind of come through. I've kind of accepted them because everybody. I've been on the bid side, and I've been I know what it's like to knock on doors and try and as when I first started off my business, I was knocking on a lot of doors. I mean, I had at London Underground, I had a contact book of like maybe 2,000 suppliers who I knew most of them. My phone was red hot all the time. And when I left London Underground, I called a couple of these people just to see if there was anything I could do for them. And the phones were quiet. Nobody had anything for me. There's only one person actually had something for me. So let's be fair. But you kind of then took a step back and you sort of said, well, this is about business. This isn't about friendships. This is about it is business. So you kind of in this state we're in now, you just got to be really kind of proactive and just keep yourself together and focus on kind of just delivering and just getting stuff done. I mean, on your side, it must be difficult because I know your events have suffered.
Yeah, so we've always had a very, very good, strong man guarding arm, and then we've got the events division side as well. But yeah, sort of we've been involved, and we're still currently involved in tenders, and we're halfway through them, and a lot of them now have been sort of put on ice because of people have been furloughed within an organisation. There's a couple of tenders that we went for have been brought forward early for emergency work. So it's very much fluid and sort of up and down at the moment in terms of that. There's a lot of our emergency work that literally came through on a phone call without any tender whatsoever. And it was supply us your price, when can you mobilise? You do work for this section of the country, we want to bring you in to do this. And, I think it will probably, some of it will go back out to tender thereafter.
But I'm hoping that, that people, I mean, I would be that, I'm hoping where people actually stood up and helped and got people out of trouble.
Yes.
Yeah. They'd be recognised. And I think, what we could, there's the ability. I mean, there's the ability to kind of like then help, change the way. I think the world's going to change now, and I think the way we operate business, the way that we deliver ourselves, is going to completely change. And I think people need to sort of recognise those that stood up to be counted, and we remember those that kind of weren't interested. I've had a lot of people. I've been speaking to a lot of people, and there's a lot of people enjoying the downtime. Or people that expect to be furloughed when they should, when they shouldn't be, and they, and it's difficult. It's difficult to try and manage. But I mean, I'm hoping, like everyone, the lockdown kind of lifts soon. I'm not keen on commuting into London. If I do, it'll be on the very early train because I know nobody's on it. Hopefully a couple of weeks.
Well, Kevin, I really appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks, Paul. I hope I made sense.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, especially for my industry. I know you procure for a number of different organisations and a number of different products and services. For me and my viewers, in terms of security and crowd safety, I've done a piece of work last week on a webinar for buying the right security provider, and I think it's important for micro sort of security companies and SMEs to get an understanding, where it is a strange role. Procurement and tenders is labour intensive. It's soul destroying that you put in a week's worth of work to get that letter. No, you lost it on price. Technical score was one off, and then you look who then won the bid, and you think they haven't got the capabilities compared to what I have as a business. But at the end of the day, it's down to the procurer, which is you, and people that you work alongside within the industry. And I think it's great, and hopefully people have taken a bit of a takeaway from an expert like yourself in how to behave and carry out a tender, and not just fill it up with waffle.
Yeah, one of the things that is not nice is actually telling someone that they've not won it. Yeah. So that's sometimes why they remain anonymous. The procurement manager remains anonymous, because you kind of it's not nice. But then telling someone who's already got the incumbent that they've lost their contract. Yeah. Worse, and I've had to do that recently, and they weren't very happy, and it's not a good feeling, because all you're doing is facilitating an exercise. And the incumbent were quite. The problem they had was they were very relaxed. That they thought they were a shoo-in, because they were there for the last 5 years, and it was someone was very keen to come through. And COVID didn't help. So.
Well, Kevin, thanks very much, and thank you for the entertainment with your little one as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, she's yeah.
Keep safe, and good luck on the trains when you can eventually get back into the big smoke. But thank you very much for joining me. And
no worries. Thanks very much.
Take care now.
Cheers. Bye.